buttons pushed today.
Yeah, I'll push your buttons, Eddie. I'll get you going. I'll work you up. Here we go.
All right. For you people on YouTube, Facebook, Facebook, you all get the benefit of our pre-show show.
Yeah.
And for the rest of you, here we go.
Believe the lie, so everything that I know says I gotta go, tired of going solo. But I'm never gonna go there again. This is what it is, this is who I am, this is where I finally take my stand. I didn't want to fall, but I don't have to grow. I'm not the one with two star hands, giving him the best of everything that's left of the life inside this man. I've been born again.
You know, that song just doesn't get old.
Yeah.
And I think I have to take just a second to speak to the importance, the significance of being born again, so that it doesn't, because we can get so used to it. It's like John 3:16. You must be born again. It just, after a while, you know, you teach kids, you know, in the second grade, maybe even younger, preschool, about being born again. And it just loses its value. But the significance of being born again, it's being born from this life into another life, into another kingdom. We're born into the earthly kingdom realm, but when you're born again, you're born into another kingdom. I've done a whole thing on this. I have a whole teaching on this, on which maybe one day we should do. And the reason that we are not subject to this kingdom, but we're like, I mean, you tie so much together where Paul talks about us being ambassadors, and Jesus said we're in the world but not of it. And there's certain people take things too literally one way, and they forget the other aspects. For example, they want to say that we're no longer subject to this world. They become totally otherworldly. But it's like, and I can use this example. When I went to South Africa, I talk about this in my book, and being black, I remember running into South Africans, I think I've talked about this before, who they see me in an area that blacks weren't supposed to be in.
Yeah.
And as soon as I spoke English, and not just English, it was American English. As soon as they recognized I was American, oh, you're American, are you?
Yeah.
It's like, don't touch him.
You're not black anymore.
I'm not. Yeah. All of a sudden, I turned white. I turned something else, and it just showed the power of being from another kingdom. I was from the kingdom of the United States, or the Republic of the United States, and all the powers of the United States were at my disposal. And that would come down upon not only them, but their nation if they mess with me. And that's how it is. But now, here's the caveat to that. If I went and robbed somebody in South Africa, if I broke their laws, let's say I broke their laws, I punch somebody in the face, I steal from them, I kill somebody, I violate their laws, I'm still subject to their laws.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand. We are subject to the laws of this world. There are certain laws, like gravity. If I step off a cliff, I'm going to fall and I'm going to die, right? There are laws of nature. There are laws of physics. There's certain laws. Now, occasionally, God may intervene for a certain reason, for a certain purpose that we don't know what it is, and that is called a miracle. That's what a miracle is. When the supernatural, above nature, superseding nature, God intervenes and supersedes that law of nature, okay? And a lot of people don't understand this. So you get these people out there that want to preach this kingdom theology or something, that you're not subject to the laws of this world or laws of nature, etc., and they get you in trouble.
Yeah, they do.
So you've got
But it sounds so good.
It does sound good, doesn't it? But you have to, we have to bring you back down to earth.
Yeah.
So we live in the world, but we're not of it. On the other side, you've got the people who want to be of the world and not in it, you know. And so you've got to, we have to keep this in balance. So when we are born again, Dave and I have experienced that. My family has experienced it, and many billions that have lived in this life have experienced it. We are no longer of this kingdom. Our kingdom is of heaven.
Yeah.
God is our king. God is our ruler. Jesus Christ rules over us through the Holy Spirit, and he is our advocate. But we still have to follow the laws of this land to a point, unless they violate the laws of the kingdom. If it asks us, if someone asked me to kill Dave just because he's a Christian, because he believes in the kingdom I'm speaking of, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it, because the laws of that kingdom supersede the laws of this kingdom. There's so many of these things, and they're all outlined in a book. It's given us a book. God has given us a book that outlines the laws, in not just outlines, but in detail gives us the laws of this kingdom. Okay, and not only that, but as you receive the Holy Spirit and you submit yourself to Jesus Christ, he has written those laws upon our hearts and upon our minds, that we really know. We know when we're violating those laws and when we shouldn't do this and shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So that's why that song is so important to us, being born again, because if you're not born again, in Ephesians, the 2nd chapter, it's one of the verses that I learned very, very early on when I got saved. I remember my parents had this giant Catholic.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the Bibles, they used a big white thing, gold everywhere.
Yeah, you're not supposed to open and read it, but you got to have it out there.
Coffee, on the coffee table. Or somewhere
on a little, pedestal, you know, our family Bible. The gold leaf.
Yeah, and it has your family tree.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so anyway, that's all I had.
Yep.
You know, and so, but that's what I started reading, and but man, that thing, and it was a Catholic, the Dewey Reams. The Dewey Reams version, and they have another version now, the new. It's the New American.
New American Bible has been a Catholic.
Yeah, the New American Bible. That's right. I was getting confused with New American Standard.
I know, everybody.
That's what I was trying to remember. Is the New American Bible, the New Standard? But it's, the New American Bible. And I have to tell you, I know a lot of you I like the New King James Bible, but I have to say, the New American Bible is one of the best Bibles you can get.
There you go.
It is a great, the translation, everything. Here's the difference between King James and the Dewey Reams even. And let's just put the Protestant and the Catholic Bible, okay? The King James Bible was translated from Greek and Hebrew. The Dewey Reams, which was actually predated the King James, it was the first translated. It was translated from Latin, which was translated from the Greek and the Hebrew, Aramaic also. So there's like a little step in between, but in the end, they're both virtually the same. But anyway, here, Ephesians, and a new one I've been into lately, a translation, new translation. Have you read the New Living Translation?
I've read some, not a lot.
It's good. It's very good. I was surprised. I started hearing, I said, man, let me check this out. You know, I was let me check this out. See how straight this is. And I compare it to all of the other, you know, I go in to Bible Gateway and I start checking all the versions, see how it measures up. Well, anyway, but so I'm going to read from the New Living Translation. Not the New Living, it's not the Living Bible, it's not the Living Version, it's the Living Translation, okay? But anyway, this is Ephesians 2. It says, you once were dead because of your disobedience and your many sins, Dave. And Eddie. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
There you go.
This is why it was so, this portion of scripture was so important to me because it hit me to a T. And I think the first week I was a Christian, I came on, and maybe the first day, I don't know how I got here, but I got here right away, you know. You were once dead because of your disobedience and your many sins. You used to live in sin, just like the rest of the world, obeying the devil, the commander of the powers in the unseen world. He is the spirit at work in the hearts of those who refuse to obey God. All of us, now get this, all of us used to live that way, following the passionate desires and inclinations of our sinful nature. By our very nature, we were subject to God's anger, just like everybody else. But God, so rich in mercy, and he loved us so much that even though we were dead because of our sins, he gave us life when he raised up Christ from the dead. For he raised us from the dead along with Christ and seated us with him in heavenly places because we are united with Christ. So God can point to us, to all future generations, as an example of his incredible wealth of his grace and kindness towards us, as shown in all he has done for us who are united with Christ. God saved you by his grace when you believe, and you can't take credit for this. It's a gift from God.
Not of works.
So anyway, nope. But the important thing is that once you were dead because of your disobedience, you used to live in sin, and he talks about this unseen world, the powers of the unseen world, that we couldn't even see it.
Yeah.
And we were subject to those powers. And that's what's going on so much in so much of the world. And then once we receive Christ, it's almost like...
Yeah, I want to ask you something. You talked about, the born again. One of the books that really helped me understand it foundationally, Kenneth Hagin, book Man on Three Dimensions, Spirit, Soul, and Body, and he kind of breaks it down. In fact, Oral Roberts really focused on that when he built the university, training the whole man. You always see that triangle, spirit, soul, and body. And so I just wanted to add that aspect. You got to understand that you are three dimensions. You are a body. You're living a body.
The flesh is also known as...
your consciousness, your soul. But the heart of what God created when he created you and me, a spirit, an infinite being.
And that's the eternal part of it.
Yeah.
That's what lives on.
I want to ask something. Going back to what you said about being in Africa and some of the cultural things and some things that you were not subject to because you were not a citizen there. You were a foreigner. And you lived in Europe for a long time. In fact, you were born in Germany, right? Germany had a major cultural upheaval following the Second World War. You lived in Holland, which has always been a little bit more on the progressive side, going way back to the Renaissance, right? My great-grandfather, Hector Van Rissegem, came to the United States because basically he was told, you cannot be a farmer. You are a butcher because your dad was a butcher, and that's all your family's ever going to be.
Right.
And so I think about the nuances in every European country, and then because South Africa is very much culturally Europe, you have that class system. I don't think most Americans truly understand how profound an influence that is.
That's true. That's true. And yeah, for example, South Africa, the whole thing about apartheid was based on the Dutch Reformed Church belief in predestination.
Oh, the Presbyterians are at it again.
So the Dutch Reformed Church was very much into predestination, and some were predestined to heaven, and some were predestined to hell.
No!
Yeah.
Oh, by tribe?
Yeah, which also translated into race.
Yeah.
And that's how black people were predestined to go to hell, basically, never make it into heaven.
Oh.
And because of that, they were also predestined to be a servant class. They were essentially one step above animals. That's essentially what apartheid and the whole predestination theory led to, that kind of thinking. In modern thinking, I told you about the story where we were ministering in this Dutch church.
Ooh.
And the pastor's son was sitting there. They actually had a bar. Remember I told you they had a bar built in the church? The church had a bar.
Oh, that sounds Methodist to me, but
the church,
or Anglican, I should
part of the church was a bar. They had their own bar. And
oh my goodness.
like from the sanctuary.
It's another way of being in the spirit, isn't it?
From the actual sanctuary, you go through these doors, and you look, and it's a bar.
Oh my God!
It has the bar with the stools, and then it has the booths. And I walked in there, and I'm like looking around. Me and our team, we're looking around, and at the bar is this young guy sitting there, and he's just drinking, and he's drunk, and a bartender back there. And this guy happened to be the pastor's son.
Oh, God, he's getting people drunk.
And no, not the bartender, the guy sitting at the bar.
Oh, okay.
The drunk guy was the bartender's son. And he's sitting there arguing with me about us Americans, with our believing in being born again and salvation and all of this. And in Holland, they don't believe that you're born saved. You're either born saved or you're not. And I just sat there shaking my head, and my team were looking at each other like just flabbergasted. We couldn't even. First of all, we were blown away that a church has this bar as part of the whole building, not much attached to the sanctuary. And then I'm sitting there going at it with this kid, and it was like, okay, we finally left and went and ministered and everything. But in the bartender, you could tell the bartender was just embarrassed for the guy. He was back there and he was making these eyes. He was just going, wow. Himself, even the bartender knew that the guy was messed up, So, but this is how that whole predestination, this is where the predestination theology ended up. It believes that, you're born a believer, or you're born saved or not saved. There's nothing you can do about it. Now, there's another stream of predestination that does not believe that it does believe that there are those predestined, but as the scripture says, you have to make your calling and your salvation sure. Mm-hmm. You have to still, and ultimately, man, I could get into a whole
I know
theological message here because I believe that's the one I believe, but for a different reason. In other words, I don't know if we've talked about it. I'm not going to do it. It's all right. We'll spare you all that. Maybe one day I'll do it.
Where I want to go with that is sometimes I think we believe certain religious tenets because they're convenient to justify our prejudices.
Yeah.
And you go to England and it's all about, are you well bred? And that's not just England.
No.
That's all over. It's even worse in India.
New England.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And this was the cool thing about, me growing up in central Minnesota, which was a bunch of immigrant class folk, right? And now, my great-grandfather and my great-grandmother had their own prejudices because they wanted everybody in this little town of 500 to know who their family was in Europe, And
when your name is Vaughn or Van,
yeah,
then that means you are somebody.
Right, but these, ignorant Swedes, they don't know that, so we got to make them know it, And this is a real problem, and they always look down on my mother's family, who's also from that little town of 500.
But she wasn't a Van.
No, she was an Irish, my God. One of our good Belgian
Bootlegger.
kids married an
Bootlegger.
Irish. Yeah, and
Bootlegger's daughter.
Yeah, but, I think that's, some of the problem because that's man glorying in the flesh.
Oh, totally. And the worst kind of glorying in the flesh is the spiritual glorying.
About how spiritually.
Just how your spirituality is so much greater than another person's spirituality. Mm-hmm. I encourage everyone, if you have it on your television somewhere, find this series called Pole Dark. Mm-hmm. It's a PBS. It's I can't remember the name. Hallmark? Is it a Hallmark series or whatever? But anyway, it was on PBS, and we watched there like four or five seasons of it, and it just showed what England was like. It began. He was a lieutenant or a captain in the British Army during the Revolutionary War, and he was wounded, but then he goes home. Well, they thought he was dead, and his fiancée thought he was dead, so she marries this other guy because she thought he was dead. And it just, he comes home, and everything's just a mess after that.
Yeah.
But he comes from a very well-to-do family, but the whole series shows the wealthy and the lords and ladies in that class and the commoner and what they could do to the commoner, the way they'd have them in prison, they could have them killed, they'd have them sent away, they could take your children, they could do the haves could do whatever they wanted to the have-nots. I mean, it was like I'm sitting there getting mad, and these are all white people. There wasn't anybody black to be, persecuted. These were all white people doing it to white people, which confirms everything I talk about in here. You don't need skin color. Okay, you don't need skin color to try to blame racism or whatever. In fact, James talks about it, right? We want to lord it upon one another. And James wasn't talking about race either. He was talking about, and this was in the church. This was in the early church.
Yeah,
they were already doing this.
Yeah,
it's a common. It's the nature of man to want to be somebody, and to be somebody often you have to make somebody else a nobody.
And the point is, you never build yourself up by putting someone else down.
Right.
I learned that back in Pee Wee League baseball.
Right.
When it came time to vote for captain of our team, the guy who was the best player had the worst attitude, but I never voted for him. I voted for the catcher who kept encouraging me. Come on, Van, I know you can get a hit. He built me up. So I look to him for leader. You don't look to the guy who puts you down.
Right. No, exactly. No,
Yeah.
you have to. And it's like when I started out in the insurance business, and when I'm speaking to people, I've always done this. Me speaking down another insurance company doesn't make my product any better. So I never talk, oh, you don't want to be with that insurance company because they're this. But there are agents out there, companies that would do that.
Yeah.
Particularly in the area of life insurance or financial services and things like that. They like to, oh, you don't want to do that. Those people do that.
Yeah.
That's not a winning strategy.
Yeah.
You want to show them how what you have benefits them.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the same you know, for example, in preaching the gospel.
Yeah.
You know, you can waste your time telling them how bad this religion is. You know, or you don't want to be those Catholics. They do this, this, and this. You want to come to be a Baptist. The guy who led me to the Lord didn't waste his time telling me I was a Catholic or these Catholics. You know, he just come see what we got.
Yeah.
And I saw it, and that was it. It's just too common for us to want to compete. It's this competition, the spirit of competition that would make us want to put these guys down to make us better.
Yeah, it's just carnality.
It is. If you're better, you're just better.
Yeah.
And people will see it.
Yeah.
People will see that you win and you win. It's like OU, the OU softball team. You know, you don't have to talk it up, right?
Right.
They just go out and win 31 games or 60-some games and only lose one or something, you know. They just do it. And everybody, we hate them. They're this, you know.
That's a loser that does that.
Exactly. And now they can't find anything else to talk about. They hate their Christianity because they're witnessing, you know.
Oh, those girls are amazing.
Yeah.
That coach is amazing.
But this is how the world works. And getting back to the original idea, we are of another kingdom. We operate differently. We operate differently. Our kingdom is not of this world.
Yeah.
But while we're in this world, we have to live by the laws of this world.
Yeah.
Unless the laws of this world are contrary to the laws of the kingdom.
Yeah. That's a good word, Eddie.
That's simple.
Eddie's a good man. He's not as humble as I am. I'm much more humble than he is.
Of course. I admit it.
Anyway, think about that.
You were speaking of Africa. I wanted to, I just saw this morning. An ISIS-linked group attacked a Ugandan school, killing about 40 kids.
Oh, my God.
I know, and it really strikes home to me. I had to be sure that it wasn't a school that our ministry. I'm over this ministry that supports these children.
Yeah.
2 different schools.
Ugandan missed.
Yeah, these 2 schools in Uganda. One's in the city of Kampala, so that's not good. But one is up in the hills in this small village, and I'm worried about them sometimes. In fact, they've had situations where you have these witch doctors and things and child sacrifices going on and stuff like that. I mean, it's so funny how the things that happen in the third world, we can't even fathom what they have to live with on a daily basis. You know, you hear, oh, come on. No, it's really still happening. This kind of stuff, witch doctors. And,
sure.
You know, I remember preaching, and afterwards they brought this guy to me. He wanted to get saved. I think I told this story. He wanted to get saved, but he was a witch doctor.
Oh.
And he had like 4 to 6 wives or something. He was willing to give up his wives, but he didn't want to give up his witch doctoring.
See, now in Liberia, they don't give up their wives.
Well, he was willing to give up his wives, but he didn't want to give up his being a witch doctor because that's how he made his money. And I sat there and talked with this guy for about an hour and a half, trying to convince him that, no, keep your wives. Quit being a witch doctor.
Leave the gun. Yeah. Grab the cannoli.
I think you got this a little wrong here. I think your priorities are a little messed up.
Yeah.
You know, keep the wives because you got kids you need to support. You know, he was thinking financially. But he said, but the Spirit told me this Spirit came and told him to come here. There was going to be a man preaching, and he was supposed to come hear me preach.
Wow.
And so he came, and he came forward to receive Christ. And I said, well, maybe the Spirit did tell you to come. But now I'm telling you, you got to give up your being a witch doctor.
Yeah.
He never would. He never would. He left. I said, I'm sorry.
If you got trouble with that, I recommend The Hideous Strength, because they deal with Merlin at the time before the gospel came to England. And they said perhaps his wizardry wasn't evil back then. Perhaps that was their knowledge of the spirit realm was limited to that. And I think of, St. Patrick in his evangelism in Ireland.
Driving out the snakes.
Yeah, all of that stuff. And you just got to, quit thinking in the here and now. Sometimes you got to stretch your brain out to another scenario. I mean, Eddie, you and I are a little different than most people. I look at like Liberia and stuff like this, and you look at Scripture, and I'd say, is it really a sin that's going to keep a man out of heaven that he's married to 3 women? Okay. Now, am I condoning that? No. Big difference. What I'm saying is, I don't think marrying them keeps him from going to heaven. Now, of course, the Presbyterians think, well, he's black, so he's not going to heaven, I've just said people have weird stuff.
There's a whole lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
First of all, we could spend an hour speaking about the whole thing of multiple marriages or have multiple spouses. Mm-hmm. I don't think, honestly, I honestly believe that now in America, Europe, wherever, because it's the law of the land, polygamy is wrong. Okay, so, but I honestly don't see a problem with multiple wives as far as a sin. Mm-hmm. Okay, Jesus never said you're limited to one wife.
Exactly.
So, and the thing is, take care of the wife and the children that you have.
Yeah.
Because, see, I've seen the opposite situation that we had where we were ministering and a girl comes forward and she's a Christian and she's come to us. The girls in our group took her aside. We're ministering to her. And her issue was she was the 3rd wife of this Muslim, which that should never have happened, but she was the Christian. But the problem was that she was barren. She couldn't have kids. And she was the only one of the wives that didn't have any children. The guy loved her. It's almost like biblical. It's almost like a biblical situation.
Yeah.
The guy loved this wife.
Yeah, sounds like Rachel.
But she couldn't have kids. Where the other 3 wives he had could have kids. I think he had actually more. I think he had 4, and she was the 3rd. But anyway, and he loved the girl, but because she didn't have any kids, and she was just, distraught because she's the only one that could they pray with her that she would have children, And my thinking is maybe God is preventing you from having children because she's married to a Muslim, and God was trying to spare the children from growing up because he was going to turn them into Muslims. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how I'm thinking, but, I don't know. But anyway, but the real issue was, no, don't get rid of those wives because they need to be taken care of. And those children need to be taken care of and raised versus your real problem, the real immediate problem is your witch doctoring. You take care of that, then let God deal with the other aspects, if at that point. But again, once you're married, he didn't take them from anybody. There wasn't any adultery involved or anything. They chose to marry him. That was the cultural thing over there. I mean, it's just a cultural thing. They have more than one wife.
Right.
So, but take care of the wives you have and the children you have, but quit being a witch doctor.
Yeah.
Quit talking to spirits. Yeah. That's the important thing.
Yeah.
And that's what that was the thing he was emphasizing.
But you were messing with the money stream, Eddie. That's really, his God was money, evidently.
Yeah. But anyway, I want to get back to this thing. So, in Kasizi, Uganda, this militant ISIS-linked group from actually they're from Congo. They're from the Congo, and they're called the Allied. You'll love this. Democratic Forces, the ADF. Why is it that everything, when it's democratic in another country, they're always bad? You know, like they came in and they killed 40 kids between 12 and 18.
Well, it's kind of like a bill in Washington, D.C. If you want to get it passed, you got to say it's for the children or civil rights, and then it'll pass. You call something democratic, and all of a sudden the UN's for it.
Yeah, but that ought to tell you something, because every country, you know, the Deutsche Democratic Republic was the communist, the what is it, the KPRK, the Korean Democratic, the Democratic people, DPRK, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, is communist North Korea.
Right.
Every time you hear democratic, it's not.
Yeah.
Every time they say Democrat, it's not. Let that sink in, people. Let that sink in.
Yeah, there was a day when we referred to mainland China as communist or red China.
Right.
Now, you try getting Joe Biden to refer to him as red China. You're going to wait a long time because they bought him. Yeah.
Whenever it's Democrat or the People's Republic, if they throw people in there or Democrat, then you know you don't want to be anywhere near it. That's just the way it is. The school is situated along Uganda's border with the Congo in the town of Kasizi, and educates children between the ages of actually 13 and 18. Of the dead, 39 were students and 2 were from the local community.
Okay, so this is teenagers they killed.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I said. I said 12, between 12 and 18. Well, I guess 13 is between 12 and 18. Authorities are still trying to extinguish the fires. By Saturday, military suspects more dead bodies may be found, but there was no one alive that was trapped in this. But basically what they did, they set the school on fire, and there were 62 people in the school.
Locked inside.
When it happened, and the spokesman for Uganda's military operation in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Major Bilal Katamba, told CNN the military is pursuing the suspects in the DRC and believes they are headed towards the Virunga National Park. So the rebels had spent 2 days in town where they were led and shown around by local residents before the killings. Everybody should be on the lookout. If you see someone you don't respect or you don't recognize, have them arrested. Please identify the youth that led the ADF here, he appealed. So apparently there were young people that led them to the school. So, this is what's happening around the world, and particularly in Uganda, and which is close to me, and it's just sad, but it's in the western part of Uganda on the border with the Congo. The explosions in Kiev. Now tell me what you think when you hear this. Explosions in Kiev as African leaders visit Ukraine. At least 2 explosions rocked Kiev Friday, and air raid sirens blared as African leaders began a peace mission hoping to mediate between Ukraine and Russia. The peace delegation, including leaders from South Africa, Senegal, Zambia, the Comoros, and Egypt, said it was pressing on with plans to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Friday before talks with President Vladimir Putin in St. Petersburg.
It could just be coincidence that they were in town.
It could be.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking that this was Ukrainian attacks.
Attacking their own city.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't trust anything. I mean, I have to tell you, I don't trust anything the Ukraine does.
Yeah.
Because, it's just too, why, and how would it benefit Russia to attack Ukraine when African leaders just happen to be there when they're coming to Russia later anyway?
Yeah.
It just makes no sense for them to do that, right? But who does it benefit? when foreign leaders are coming to your town and to attack on that day, right? It just, that makes sense to me. That, oh, look, we almost killed these African leaders, so let's, this is how bad the Russians are. I mean, like I said, I don't trust anything Ukrainians do anymore. They are, to me, one of the most vile and crooked countries in the world. Now, the common people may be good people, okay? I'm not saying, it's like everything else. You've got good people. But from what I've seen, a lot of the good people, or most of the good people, seem to be overridden by the sharks in charge.
Yeah. I talked to a Christian man. He's a plumber in town. He's from Western Russia. And I talked to him the week that this war started. I said, are there any good guys in this? He says, no, not the Russians or the Ukrainians. He says, we best stay as far away as we can because it's just going to suck us in like a tar baby. And he was right. So my concern on this, I think you can blame more than anybody else Bill Clinton for this. The reason I say that is in the mid-'90s, when Ukraine was an independent nation, remember you had the Commonwealth of Independent States is what they set up to replace the Soviet Union. And many of the ICBMs, missile silos, were in Ukrainian land. And Bill Clinton convinced the Ukrainians that we'll be your protector, get rid of those. Because Clinton did not want another nuclear-powered state. And he thought, we can get rid of all the missiles. That's one less nation that has the power to destroy the earth. And he promised U.S. protectorate status over them. That's essentially as committing as them being a NATO member. And I think we screwed up 30 years ago. What do you think?
I don't even want to get started because, I mean, there's so many areas and so many times when we had a chance to turn this around. When the wall first came down, and here's the deal. I don't think it's our job as America necessarily. I don't think we bear a responsibility. I think it's Western Europe.
Right, but when Bill Clinton, on behalf of our government, makes that pledge, and if we don't do it, we're breaking a pledge.
That's true, okay. Yeah, he should have never made the pledge, okay. He should have never made the pledge and let it happen back then. What should have happened, he should have said, or George H.W. Bush initially when the wall came down, we should have gone in when Ukraine broke free from the USSR, when all of the others, Slovenia and Estonia,
the Warsaw Pact,
the Warsaw, all of the non-Russia ones, when all of those broke free, they should have immediately allowed them to join NATO or whatever they wanted to do, build an alliance at that point.
Yeah, I wouldn't say NATO, but I think an alliance.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you had Sweden up there, you had Finland up there, you've got Austria, Germany, Italy, all these surrounding countries. But we who are oceans and a continent and an ocean away.
Hemisphere away.
And we're supposed to be the ones
that
it's our fault.
Yeah.
No, it's not our fault.
Well, except when you make a promise, which you never should have made. That's what I'm saying.
But that's what I'm saying. But that never should have made the promise. Yeah. Right. It's not our responsibility. Right? Yeah. Why is it our responsibility? It's our responsibility now for Taiwan. Okay? It's our responsibility for the Philippines.
Yeah.
It's our responsibility for Vietnam. Yeah. It's our responsibility for Cambodia, Thailand. You name it. It's all, it's America.
Right.
America. United States. And in the meantime, here we are. Our economy is being sucked dry by these, okay? Mexico is our fault. Panama is our fault.
Yeah, I know it.
Venezuela is our fault. It's all our fault. It's all our responsibility.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. When are we our own responsibility?
Yeah.
In the meantime, look over here. We got everybody looking over here when they're killing us over here at home.
Yeah.
They're doing more damage here than they are over there.
Yeah. I think some of what H.W. Bush didn't do was exactly the right thing, because the last thing you want to do is gloat when you got somebody insecure, feeling vulnerable, that their great military might and everything is all of a sudden collapsed. And much of what we did, especially with Yeltsin in, was very much good ambassadorship, and I think that was fine. I know you didn't mean NATO per se. I think a European
alliance, right.
Yeah, that the U.S. doesn't have a national interest in this of any significance.
No, you're right.
And there are a few nations we do have a
NATO is one of the problems that.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right. You're right.
And I think Trump was right when he said maybe we just need to end NATO, because it was designed for a whole different world order. And really we just need to rethink this, because, think of it. Turkey's in NATO. And the kind of junk that Turkey is doing could easily get them into war. In fact, they got into war with Greece back in the 70s, remember? Now what is NATO supposed to do?
Yeah. Who do they back?
Yeah. And Falkland Islands, that's British territory. And now what are we supposed to do? That's England still trying to hang on to a colony over in our hemisphere. And we got to rethink this automatic triggers that makes us send our boys to war.
Yeah.
So.
No. Yeah. You got NATO and CETO.
CETO.
Southeast Asia.
Oh, okay.
Treaty Organization.
Okay. I hadn't heard that term.
Well, yeah. You got all these alliances that all these things we're supposed to do, all these people we're supposed to protect. And, it's not supposed to be just us protecting these people, but it always ends up being us doing the protecting. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the reason that we are the ones who do it is the military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
It keeps them busy making armaments and weapons and things, and it keeps them in business. And
you know why? The United States hasn't really been hit with significant international terrorism in the last few years. I believe it's because China, believe it or not, in a weird way is protecting us. Because they don't want anything to wake us up. They like Joe Biden. They want him to stay there, and they don't want anything to upset his chances because they own him. Fact is, we just found out more evidence today. Now it's up to over $20 million in bribes.
Oh, there's more than that.
Oh, I'm sure we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
But Trump's the real danger, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, and he was indicted, and they made a big deal out of it. And I have a hard time with this whole deal of his so-called indictment. In fact, the whole idea of the declassification, okay? Someone just sent me an email before we went on the air. And in this, he was saying something about this is a big question. When did he declassify? Was it before noon or after noon? Because, afternoon, 12:01 p.m., basically. Because before 12:01 p.m., he was still president. After 12:01 p.m., Biden had officially been sworn in, and he was then the president. And Trump no longer had the authority to declassify.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter. When Trump left the White House, everything was packed up. Basically, that was being taken out of there. And to me, like the fairy godmother of the king, he said, "You're declassified." I mean, Does somebody have to be there with a pen?
It doesn't matter.
Declassify, or stamp declassify.
It doesn't matter.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to do that.
Yeah, Trump is doing it right here. He's saying, look, you do have these laws pertaining to archives.
Right.
The only thing is, the president is exempt from all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me put it this way. Any document created during his administration,
right,
he has authority over. And he keeps pointing to the Bill Clinton famous Sox decision,
right,
that had to do with the Presidential Records Act. Right. And the Supreme Court ruled that, look, he has complete authority over any document created during his administration. Now, Biden doesn't have authority over what happened in several others when he was still a senator.
Well, period.
Yeah,
period.
The guy should be locked up.
He should be locked up under the jail. Yeah.
Right. So, and now here's where I'm really discussing. I'm talking to you, Mike Pence, because you're playing up this narrative. That narrative does apply to Mike Pence, who should have never had any records.
He should never have had any. And he tries to sound so smooth and so, yes, we cooperated fully.
I'm going to have to work on my Mike Pence impersonation because he always talks like he's got hemorrhoids. He always talks, and he's got those eyebrows. But you know what?
He speaks at a much lower tone.
Yeah.
You sound like your temper.
I know.
Yours hurt.
Oh, I've got to work on it. I said I need to. But it's just that, that little bit. And,
hemorrhoids with Valium.
Yes. And he has that cadence, that gravitas.
There, much better.
And
much
it is so fake.
Oh, it's irritating.
Yeah.
People see it. It's no good. It stinks. It stinks. And the people say he's done. I mean, he was done before he even got. I don't know why he's doing it. It's almost sickening. You talk about a person that has just ruined themselves, their image, totally distorted. People liked Mike Pence. He could easily, I believe, had he stayed loyal, had he stuck with it, he could easily have been the future president following Trump.
Oh, yeah.
But now, no, he's just another backstabber.
Yeah.
He's just a backstabbing politician. He's another backstabbing politician. That's all he is.
I just read the Chris Christie presidential campaign platform. It's 4 words. Trump is a loser. That's all he's running on. That is it.
Well, yeah. I think of a famous show that's been on television that was a reality show that fits Chris Christie in more ways than one.
Tell us.
The Biggest Loser.
Biggest Loser, yeah.
Christie should have been on that one.
Yeah.
Because, that guy, he's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And it's so funny to me how CNN likes to get these people that are essentially rejected by the Republicans. They like to get them on there and have them represent the GOP. I mean, that's what's so funny. They try to, somehow they convince themselves that these are legitimate Republicans. And they have Chris Christie on there speaking for Republicans. And I said, come on.
But I got to warn my fellow conservatives. Right now, Trump is under a concerted attack that Pence and Christie are actually collaborating in. And while not directly collaborating with Pence, with DeSantis has his own thing going.
Well, you know who's running DeSantis' campaign?
I've heard Karl Rove.
Yeah, it's the Bush.
Yeah,
Bush team.
It's the Bush team,
which is going to that's going to undo him when that gets known and everybody finds that out. That's the end of DeSantis.
Yeah, and really, Karl Rove did the same thing with DeSantis so far that he did with GW when he ran GW's administration. When GW was still governor of Texas. And you get the whisper campaign going. You invite the inside, influencers in the Washington media and stuff, and they just keep building that narrative. And they're doing it the same way. And then the money. Oh my goodness, the money stream. And Trump is not getting money from the military-industrial complex. He's not getting from pharmaceuticals. He's not. There's a bunch of people that really Trump's bad news for them.
Yeah, and here's the problem. DeSantis will not win. He cannot win. Mm-hmm. I mean, even if he beats Trump.
Oh, they'll take him out so fast?
Well, but that's not the reason he won't win. Mm-hmm. See, and this is what gets me, that which makes people like Rove such a Judas, because he has to know this. If DeSantis were to this game they're playing,
yeah,
you have your never Trumpers, mm-hmm. of which basically are now behind DeSantis. Mm-hmm. He's essentially, people, the never Trumper candidate. Okay, now if he were to say win the GOP nomination, the ever Trumpers, that's the other side, the ever Trumpers, 30% or so. I plead guilty. The ever Trumpers will not vote for DeSantis. Yeah. They will not vote for DeSantis. They would rather see the ship go down than to vote for DeSantis. Essentially, what are you getting? The problem is, if we go for that, you essentially are going for, you're destroying the country just by degrees rather than all at once, to get a backlash of where a real true conservative can come in and win. That's just my opinion.
And I had that same issue back in '92. I was supporting Buchanan's campaign, helping manage it, and
that's different. That is different. Pat Buchanan he did not have the groundswell of support that Donald Trump has.
Well, I'm taking this a different way than you. What I'm saying is, when you're faced with the decision of Bill Clinton versus H.W. Bush, I went and helped H.W. Bush because I didn't want Clinton. And I talked to a bunch of my Buchanan fellow activists, and a bunch of them say, no, I'd rather see Clinton win. That way, it'll make my argument for me.
But see, Clinton didn't beat H.W. Bush. It was Ross Perot.
No, I don't think that's true.
Oh, well, you can go back and check this. You can check the stats.
Yeah, I did.
Bill Clinton didn't get a majority of the vote.
Nobody did.
You remember exactly.
Nobody did. But you had to look
Ross
at
Perot got how many? What did he get? Was it 17%? 17%. That's the most I think any third-party candidate has ever got.
He was taking votes away from Clinton as well.
But not like Bush.
What you have to do, and this is a little bit tough. I've talked to political scientists. Steve Bias is one of them. He says, you have to actually go to the electoral college to do this right, because it's a state-by-state vote. And you have to look at the polling in that state and look at who people's number 2 choice was. And it's pretty difficult to prove either way. But there's a bunch of people that supported Ross Perot that would have voted for Clinton. In fact, I've got relatives who started out with Ross Perot. And remember when he dropped out? Now, you talk about strategy. Ross Perot himself did want to take out Bush because he resigned 2 days before Clinton's acceptance speech. And then he says, I'm looking forward to hearing that speech. How much of a setup is that? And then when Bush gets his convention bounce, all of a sudden Bush is on top, then Ross gets back in. So I do agree, Ross's goal was to take out Bush.
Right.
But I'm just saying, Ross's base of support pulled from both sides, and it's very difficult.
Right, but he pulled more from Bush. And I believe I don't just believe, I'm positive that he pulled the election for Clinton. And I know several people.
I would agree with you. The net result was that.
Right. And I know several people that I argued with almost to the death that they should not vote for Perot. And they wanted to vote for Perot versus Bush. They just lost their faith in Bush. And, this is my prediction. If DeSantis should be the nominee, he won't win.
Yeah.
It'll be Biden. It'll be 4 more years of Biden.
Yeah.
And there's no guarantee that if Trump wins that it'll be Trump. It won't be Biden. I mean, there's no guarantee either way. I'm just saying that the ever-Trumpers, the 30-some% that are just diehard Trump fans.
Trump or bust.
Right. They are so locked in, and they see such disloyalty and such scheming. Mm-hmm. It's not. See, DeSantis, I don't think anybody has anything necessarily bad to say about his politics or anything like that. Okay. And let me be clear here. There's nothing, but the thing about DeSantis and the thing that I see, and it goes back to Trump, actually, if you ever watched The Apprentice, Trump values one thing. And if you ever watch The Apprentice, the first thing that will get you kicked off The Apprentice was disloyalty. If he had his teams, if you did anything that was disloyal to your team or your team leader, you were gone. You're fired. Okay, that was his thing. And for DeSantis to have played up Trump, he was losing in his election for governor. 1 week before the election, he came to Trump to ask for his help to become governor. He would not even be governor if it weren't for Trump coming to his aid. And then now he decides, well, now I'm going to take you out. Homie, don't play that. I just don't like that. And see, here's the other thing. And this is how the Democrats can play this perfectly. I hate to give them, but I don't think they need my advice. But here's how I see them playing this. And they're already playing it perfectly. They're branding DeSantis as this homophobic racist in Florida, right? They're keeping, the NAACP is not banning, but they're boycotting Florida. They're basically DeSantis is the son of a grand wizard or something. I mean, that's how they're making it.
Oh, sure.
Listen, black people don't pay that much attention because all they watch is they listen to PBS and watch MSNBC. That's their news.
Didn't DeSantis' dad shoot
Martin Luther King?
Yeah, in the grassy knoll, Wasn't he seen with Oswald?
I don't know.
Okay. That was Trump!
Yeah. No, but they, thank you for interrupting. But anyway, so by the time it gets to the major campaign, he might as well have a hood on, okay?
Sure.
So, whereas you can't do that with Trump. Trump not only had a loyal black base.
Oh, huge.
It's been growing.
Yeah. And
it's still growing. So these are the things that I don't see a lot of these Republicans, and I'm going to bring it home now.
Okay.
Our governor in Oklahoma.
Talking to you, Kevin Stitt. No, we helped you.
Our governor has joined the DeSantis bandwagon.
He has.
As have so many governors. I guess governors feel they need to support governors.
Governor Stitt was the first to announce,
To announce what?
Endorsing DeSantis.
I'm not so sure
That's
about
what
that.
was said nationally when.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that was just a week ago.
Okay, well, maybe. All right. He was the first to support, what's his name, up in Virginia, too. Remember when he was running for governor?
Well, he took advantage of the guy coming. I mean, are you going to say
no?
No.
That was way back. Back when he first announced he's running for governor.
Yeah, and then Youngkin returned the favor, came here.
Right, came here, right.
And we still don't know if Youngkin's going to get in the race.
Excuse me, I don't know, but anyway, no, I'm pretty sure there's been a few governors that are supporting.
Yeah, we could be
DeSantis.
wrong. Let us know.
Yeah. But anyway, but we'll see how it all plays out. And of course, DeSantis was here in Tulsa.
Yeah, just a week ago today.
Yeah.
While we're doing the show, after.
Yeah, he planned it that way.
Yeah.
He didn't want us. He didn't want me up there. Excuse me, Governor DeSantis. Yeah. What do you say to? Yeah, they'd have drugged me out of there. Then he'd have been really a racist. Yeah, he drug Eddie Huff out of there. No, seriously though. Listen, I have nothing against the policies of Ron DeSantis. Okay, let me get that out. Mm-hmm. My problem is it's a thing of character. It's always been. That's how it was back when Dave and I were mortal enemies back there in 2016. Mm-hmm. I don't like a disloyal person. When someone gets you to the place you are, you don't repay them by now. I'm a big shot. Now I'm going to go ahead and replace you. I just don't like that. I don't think that's as the British say, cricket.
Yeah.
So that's why and plus, I mean, of course, I'm a Trump guy, and I believe you've got too many rats leaving the ship, and you've got new rats revealing themselves every day.
Yeah.
He's got enough people being a rat, and what you actually end up doing is you're helping the other side. You help the other side because we are showing such disunity. We're showing such divisiveness. There's no cohesiveness in the Republican Party. And with that, it's hard to win an election of any kind. That's what happened just almost a year ago in the congressional and Senate races and gubernatorial races. We got killed. We did not have the victory that we were looking for because we
had a small.
You had Karl Rove and his gang, that same gang, undercutting our state races.
Let's just say Mitch McConnell. He would rather the Democrats stay in control.
So he'd be the minority leader.
Yeah, because you help all these other people get in. And Mark Wayne Mullen told us here, he sent you an email to confirm it. He says, Mitch is out of touch and his time has passed. But there weren't enough Mark Wayne Mullins to bring about a change.
Right.
And we do need that change. I want to say something about Karl Rove.
Yeah.
He's a campaign consultant. He makes his living off of convincing politicians that he prefers to go ahead and get in a race because he gets a cut. He gets his commission. I remember back
win or lose.
Yeah. When Steve Forbes was running back in the 90s, I remember Don Rubottom and I were talking. He was my state senator. And he was working on Steve Largen's campaign. And he said, you got to be careful for these campaign operatives who will convince you and tell you everything that how great you're going to do and everything. What they know is they're going to get their cut. Even if you get destroyed politically, they will get their cut. Never, ever trust a campaign consultant. They are political prostitutes.
Well, Rove has been one. Yeah, you can see it, and he's part of that whole Fox cabal too.
Yeah,
he's still their guy,
right?
Fox,
right. And what's more important to them than a movement, than values, than a philosophy of freedom, is their own economic well-being. And I'm going to say the same thing about politicians. Their political future is more important than the ideologies that us conservatives sent them there to advance. And Pat Robertson died recently. One of the great quotes I remember from his 88 election, he said, I'll tell you the difference between a politician and a statesman. A politician is concerned about the next election. A statesman is concerned about the next generation. And that's where we've got to be. Activists, don't allow yourself to be exploited by a politician or a campaign consultant or even a special interest group, an activist group, a Tea Party group, an anything group, because they have agendas that means their own well-being is first. If somebody sends you to Washington to fix something and you fix it, you're out of a job. National right to life is now like, what do we do now? We got rid of abortion.
Yeah.
My God, I lost my career.
Yeah.
I spent 40, 50 years building a career and an empire on something, and what do you know? It happened.
Yeah, it's like the race pimps.
Yeah.
You know, you got the abortion pimps. I mean, I hate to say it. I hate to be that crass, but in a way, you had people that made a cottage industry of being anti-abortion.
Yeah.
You got. It's just this. It's the nature of man that we tend to, and sometimes I don't think it's always necessarily a purposeful thing that you slip into. You honestly feel you have a mission and you want to get into it, but then it becomes your livelihood, and then you've done it so long, so you know what do I do if this is not there anymore? And then all of a sudden, in fact, I remember being on the mission field, and we were sitting around in a leaders meeting at YWAM in Amsterdam, and we were different. We had different areas of ministry. We had street teams, and we'd have people that were ministering in the churches, and then drug guys, and this. And mine was the musicians for missions, where we would send teams to around Europe, and we were discussing about newsletters, and all of a sudden, somebody came in, and one of our teams had been arrested in Morocco because they had these Bible tracts, but it was this one called the Father Heart of God, but it was in Arabic. And and it's against the law. It's propaganda. Yeah. And you're not allowed to have that. So they found him with this, and they arrested him. They put him in jail there in Morocco. And the person came in, they were all alarmed and everything. And I remember looking across the room at a couple of the other guys on the other side of the room, and they looked at me, and all of a sudden everybody got this big grin on their face, and we had to hide our faces because we knew what everybody was thinking. And
no, where were you at when this? Where were you at?
We were in Amsterdam.
Amsterdam, okay.
Yeah, so we were in the safety of this meeting. So anyway, we were we get this message: these people being arrested, and here we are laughing about these guys being arrested. But all we could think about was, oh man, their support's going to skyrocket.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember thinking after, man, this is terrible. And instead of us being concerned about these guys, what could happen to these guys being locked up in Moroccan jail, guys and girls, there was no concern about that. Because in our minds, they'll be fine. They're going to go through a little something, but they'll be fine. But man, when they come out, and then it hit us that what is wrong with our thinking? What have we come to that our minds had gotten so messed up that the fundraising was like right at the top of our thinking.
Exactly.
With the ministry. It's
that enticing. I mean, it's subtle.
Yeah.
But it's money, and it happens all the time. You've heard me talk about how organized religion gets caught up in it.
Yeah.
You know,
That's why I'm a terrible fundraiser. I'm horrible. I mean, in fact, we were there 12 years, and after I wouldn't even do. People would have to ask me what's going on.
Yeah.
I didn't even send out letters anymore.
Yeah.
I don't send out letters about, our Ugandan thing. When you bring it up, it's because you bring it. I don't, and God still does it, praise God.
Yeah.
I mean, people talk to me and it comes up or something. I mention, oh yeah, I do this, but that's the only way we do it. But I'm the opposite. I'm so afraid of getting into the fundraising thing that I don't even mess with it.
Why don't we, in a future pre-show, let's just go over it, how it started, what you're doing, and give me that. Because I think there's a lot of us who are intrigued by a lot of things you do. You got to lay us, But by the way, I want to say, Debbie and I, when we were starting a family, we lost our first child, miscarriage. And I remember being at City Faith Hospital. We had to go through some medical procedures as a result and grieving deeply. And one of the chaplains at City Faith, this is Oral Roberts Ministry, started to work with their university. They gave us some materials from the March of Dimes. And I'd always heard of the March of Dimes, their different fundraising stuff, but I never really stopped to think of it. And their whole focus was on birth defects and difficulties dealing with birth, right? Including miscarriage and things like that. So I studied a little bit, found out March of Dimes never intended to get involved in that. They were organized to fight polio.
Polio, right. That's what I was, polio.
And as soon as polio became not the big issue, and their fundraising, we've got to take on another issue.
Right.
And they did. And that's to be commended, because I'm telling you, the stuff they had to help us through this, I wasn't getting any other place. I mean, not even our local church knew how to deal with us. And in fact, I get a call one night, 11 o'clock, because I talked to one of the deacons about, hey, I haven't even heard boo. I just lost my firstborn before they're born, and pastor hasn't even so much as called me.
Don't you hate that?
And he said, I'm going to a board meeting tonight. It's a Monday night. He says, I'll talk to him. I get a call 11 o'clock that night from my pastor. And he said, Dave, I'm sorry for waking you up, but I could not go to sleep tonight without apologizing. And I said, well, I'm off on Wednesday. Can we come by and talk? Yeah. We sat in his office, and I said, Pastor, we're pro-life. We believe life begins at conception. If we don't treat the loss of this life with as much dignity, and I mentioned some elder in the church who was in his 80s, as much as his death, we've got no business picketing abortion clinics if we don't treat the death of an unborn. And that hit him so hard. It changed his life. His view of life. But, and it was March of Dimes learned how to adjust. But that's the hardest thing for some think tank or a special interest group, especially in politics.
So let me ask you this. So March of Dimes, you think they're still doing good work?
Yeah. Haven't heard anything different. I mean, believe me, when you, as a young expecting parent, lose a child, then all of a sudden it becomes a big deal.
Because I just cut off one. I cut off one because they got a little bit woke. So I decided to cut them loose, but I would have to find a new one.
You remember Larry Burkett, Christian financial
author,
manager,
right,
things,
right,
and somebody had asked him the Q&A on his radio show years ago. He said, actually, no, he was on Focus on the Family, and Jim Dobson said, no, when I see a panhandler on the street corner, as a Christian, how do I handle that? And he said, find an outreach ministry that specializes in reaching people in that kind of destitute thing in your community. Not something in New York or,
Right.
or you're watching it. In your community. And you support them. And then you work out with that local ministry. How do I get these people when they have a need? How do I get them in touch with you? And I'll say, John 3:16 mission here in Tulsa does a fantastic job. And they actually give out passes to their supporters to give out with somebody free bus ride or free, lift anywhere you want to go. And their homeless ministry people go pick them up, take them where they want, give them some food, and build a relationship with them. And he said, and the guys at John 3:16 here in town said, you give them money, you're just, proliferating the problems they're in if they aren't getting the kind of intervention help.
Right.
And that. So there's ways to help without being exploited.
Oh, no, I agree. I agree totally.
And conservatives, politically, we're getting exploited. I'll say this. I said back when the religious right first became a political force in the early 90s, and all of a sudden you started hearing politicians who'd been around, all of a sudden they talk about how important God is in their life. You never heard it a decade ago, but now it is. And then you started hearing the left trashing religious. It's got no place in politics. As much as they were despising religion, there are politicians exploiting religion for political gain. And I'll say this, those who will exploit religion for political gain will abandon religion for political gain. And that's also true. I mean, if the culture is going a different direction than Orthodox Christianity, they'll go with the culture. And they will, worse than that, they will trash you and me if we don't also abandon our Christian convictions.
Yeah.
I said when I worked Santorum's 2012 campaign, and the whole issue about gay marriage is coming up, I put out a meme there. I said, I will not call a sin a sacrament. Because they wanted everybody to treat gay marriage with all the holiness of matrimony. No, I ain't going there. That doesn't make me a hater. So anyway, I'm sorry, I'm off on my soapbox.
Dave was preaching.
Yeah.
Hey, let me throw this out real quick. They're saying now the West Nile virus is the new deadly pandemic hitting us. West Nile virus has been in Tulsa for 10 years?
I got it 10 years ago.
Yeah, and
I got one. 95% of people who get West Nile don't even know it.
Here's health officials around the country are reporting cases and positive samples of the West Nile virus in Iowa. The Department of Health and Human Services announced Friday the first case of West Nile virus infection was reported this year in an older adult, 61 to 81. But this whole article goes on talking about how, it's a new deadly virus. I think they're just trying to, I don't know what it is. They seem to have this need to keep us panicked.
Yeah, that's how they get power. They scare you, and then they get power. They get you to wear a mask. They get you to listen. People told me afterwards, because I got a hard case of it. Mm-hmm. Now, it was just like a common cold for about a week, but I was fatigued for about 3 more weeks. And I studied up on it. All the best medical journals say you get a lifetime immunity.
Once you get it,
you get
a lifetime. Wow.
And, so I still got people, oh, boy, you better wear, take mosquito repellent. You might get it again. No, I actually am one who doesn't need
I am You would think they'd have a West Nile antivirus now because of that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Jonas Salk and the polio.
Yeah.
I used to love when they came out with the polio vaccine, and that was like one of the high points of elementary school, lining up and getting your sugar cube.
Oh, yeah, because that's a drop. They
put a drop on it. You'd have your little cup, and you'd go with your thing, and then the lady would drop, and then you go, and We used to love that. I mean, that brings back, I almost get goosebumps thinking a nostalgic moment in the life of Eddie Huff.
Just
getting
a cube full of
getting
sugar
his polio sugar cube, you know. Yeah. Of course, they probably created all kinds of diabetics from that. Just from
You know, I got my vaccine for polio at my local clinic. She just had me open my mouth and put my tongue up on the roof. You know, and she just put a dropper. It was under my tongue.
Oh, you poor thing.
Yeah, I didn't get my sugar cube.
No, they did it at our school.
Yeah.
Every year, the whole school, by class, they call your class and you go into the auditorium and they give you a sugar cube and then you throw your sugar cube in and the kids loved it. I mean, that's one thing. Kids couldn't wait. When are we getting our polio vaccine?
Yeah. Now, you were in high school when some of the major vaccines, like the smallpox.
Oh, no. That was much earlier. I was much younger. Yeah, I was.
Okay, I remember.
I was in high school when they stopped.
Oh,
that's
right. Because I still have the scar. Because that's the one that gives you that.
In fact, I've got them on
scar.
both shoulders.
Wow.
And remember the girls? They have them on their butts.
Oh.
Because they didn't want the girls to have this scar on for beauty's sake, so they put them on their hips. They put them on their butts.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so my wife...
Eddie's aware of these things.
Well, yeah,
But you're right. I mean, my mom actually, that's right. That one came much earlier because my mom even had it on her shoulder. Yeah. But you're right. Girls my age, I don't remember them now. And actually, you can't even see mine anymore. But, when I was like 15, 20, it was a very pronounced scar.
Right. Yeah, I used to blister up in these bubbles. It was pretty gnarly, I think. And it would itch, and you'd say, don't scratch it. Don't scratch it. And you're saying,
yeah.
And this thing just itching these giant blisters on your shoulder, and you're just going, and they would try to cover it up. But it only lasted a day or so, and then it would go away.
Yeah. Now, and it's become a massive industry for pharmaceuticals because it's the only thing where you don't have to worry about getting sued for malpractice for a bunch of people dying. And the chickenpox vaccine, that's one, if I was raising family, I would not do chickenpox vaccine for my kids. You expose them just like we were. Go play with Johnny. He's got chickenpox. You're 10 years old. This is the right time to get yours. Because get this, that chickenpox vaccine, now this is testimony before the House Health Committee. They said, developers of it, it takes 3 doses. And this is about 10 years ago, they said, at a cost of about $200 for the 3 doses overall. Okay. And if everybody in America had this vaccine, it would drop chickenpox cases by 50%. That's it. So it doesn't protect you. At best, if everybody got it, you'd have a 50% drop.
Well, 50% is better than no percent.
But if you get chicken pox from going and playing with Johnny, that's a much better.
Yeah.
In fact, even the great Anthony Fauci says you can't get better protection than having overcome and recovered from the virus.
Yeah. No, we had people, my kids, we lived in this, I think I talked about this, we had the giant house in Holland.
Yeah.
When my kids got it, and these people were visiting from America, and, they were just so thankful because their kids were able to get chicken pox while they were visiting us,
Sure.
And we had like 6 miserable kids in our house at one time. And then our at that time he was the youngest, Zach. He got it, but he got like 2 pox. I mean, and the rest of them are so mad because he only had 2 spots is all he ever got. But neighbors used to bring, if they found anybody that had them, they would take their kids over there to get them exposed so they could get them and get them over with.
Right.
Yeah, that used to be the way people dealt with these things.
40 years ago, you only got shingles, which is the same virus, but it hits you much harder after you're adult. You only got it, really, if you just bypassed chickenpox as a kid. Now that we got this vaccine going for the last 25 years, shingles cases have gone way up. And I'm saying, if you think that the vaccine is the solution, you might be wanting to start thinking of it as the problem.
You're talking about the shingles vaccine?
The whole vaccine...
Or the chickenpox vaccine.
Right. Getting the vaccine process and going that route, trusting big pharma
versus
to protect you rather than
chickenpox. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, Eddie, you've been involved in missions enough to know there's certain countries where if you're going there, you can't drink the water.
Right.
But the locals can. Why? Because they have a much stronger immune system than you. And it's because they kept drinking it since they were born.
I'll tell you what's funny. Yeah, when we went to Uganda, the Dutch, Europeans in general, wouldn't eat the local food. Like they would always want steamed rice. They want the cooked rice, cooked cabbage, this and this and this.
Yeah.
Whereas the Americans, we said, what is that? It's matoke, burro. Okay, give me that. So the Americans were eating the native food. So the Europeans eating all of the steamed, cooked Western food.
Right.
They're getting yellow fever and cholera. The rest of the Americans, nothing. Nothing. And we're just eating the native food.
Yeah.
Never came down with anything. But we had some of these kids, these European kids just sick as dogs. We're worried about them,
Right.
For days, like 4 days, 5 days, just with these 140-degree fevers in these hospitals over there. And we're thinking, oh, my goodness, what's going to happen, Rest of us, no problems,
Right. And the same thing is true. We saw it with COVID. Everybody, got to stay away from each other and everything. And finally, when we come back together, all the other viruses that got rampant about a year ago. I remember getting sick as a dog, because ultra-sterilizing is not a long-term solution. Yeah. It's keeping your immune system built up, and exposure is part of that. That's God's design, folk.
I think so.
Yeah.
And God's protection. Hey, by the way, I have one right up your alley.
All right.
You should love this.
All righty.
The NCAA committee has dropped marijuana from the banned drug list.
Thank God. Thank God.
So now athletes, college athletes, can test positive for marijuana and still compete and not lose their scholarship.
Right, because in a drug test, it doesn't matter in the drug test whether it's just from that pot party you went to or whether it's just part of you and your doctor's strategy for dealing with pain from that knee blowout,
Well, for one thing, they're not prescribing marijuana for a knee blowout.
Who's they? Your doctor.
The doctors.
No, there are doctors recommending cannabis medicines as an alternative to opioids.
I don't know about any university doctors.
Well, yeah, I didn't say university doctors.
Well, okay, all right.
But if you're a high school star athlete and you blew out your knee and you're still hoping to play next year, your family doctor back home, depending on what state is in, I'm just saying.
Well, but see, there's ways around that. Okay, now if you've got a prescription, but let me just say this, okay, because my son was assistant AD and worked operations at University of Kansas and at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and
let me tell you, he told me that wasn't the problem. The guys were just getting high, okay?
Oh, yeah.
The guys were just doing dope.
No doubt. Okay. No doubt in my mind at all.
So now, from now on, they can just smoke the dope as much as they want, and the NCAA can't do anything about it.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem because are we going to be a nanny state? It's not a performance-enhancing drug.
No, but it can be, to me, it's a performance-decreasing drug, and it can actually create injuries. It can create injuries. If a guy's not on his top game, that can cause, maybe, have we ever considered that one of the reasons we're getting all of these what is it, PTE or whatever this thing is, head injury, traumas, and
concussion protocol stuff.
Yeah, and all of these blown out body parts is because the guys aren't at their top performance.
Right.
It's possible these linemen aren't blocking as well as they could because their performance is diminished.
Well,
I mean, there's all of these ancillary side effect downsides to me, to people being high or having the lasting effects of drug
right,
use.
But performance enhancing, speed. What are those called? Class of drugs. It's
amphetamines,
yeah, things like that.
Uppers,
right? Those are performance enhancing. Yeah. Even opioids. And that does lead to further injury, because if you just deaden the pain, the guy stays in the game and gets injured worse. Yeah. Pain is a messenger. Pay attention.
Right.
So, but things, I don't want to become part of the whole culture war battle against somebody else's preferred relaxation drug. Because do we want them back to drinking beer?
No. But see, that's the thing. To me, they used to kick you off for being drunk, right? For alcohol abuse, they could kick you off the team or punish you.
That's your coach. That's the difference between that and the NCAA. Big difference.
Well, that's true. But still, I don't know. I think it goes further, because here, what they're doing now is essentially just opening the door, and it's going to make coaches hesitant, because really, I mean, if the NCAA says it's okay, how can a coach come down on a team? I mean, how can you as a coach then come in and say...
Oh, no. I mean, there's a bunch of Christian schools that don't allow certain conduct. Take the ORU baseball team. Do you think they're going to allow them if they see them out drinking? If they're going to... No, that's a discipline issue.
It might be. It might not.
Well, traditionally, ORU's been that way.
Traditionally.
But I'm using that scenario, okay?
Yeah, you can use the scenario. I'm just saying what you've done is you've opened, it's the old camel's nose under the door.
Yeah, but...
we've always, Dave, you and I are taking two different positions, but they're similar. See, to you see it as it is. I see it as it's going to end up. And I'm already down here. You're not. Yeah. It's the old thing, I see the kid that starts out smoking weed end up doing hard drugs.
Well,
and I know not everybody ends up that way. Yeah. But too often they do.
Here's where I'm inconsistent. I still believe we should make things illegal that have a powerful, physically addicting potential that ends up lethal. Okay? I'm talking about fentanyl, the opioids. I'm talking about crack.
But that's an immediate outcome.
The overdose,
fentanyl can kill you immediately.
Well, I understand that.
Okay, but that's apples and oranges. I mean, that's not even a good example.
No, you've got to separate two things. The addiction, as it gets worse and worse, eventually ends in death, even if you didn't overdose along the way.
Right.
Okay.
So you can't use fentanyl. Use something else.
Yeah, well, opioids, I'm going to say that in general, or, crack or meth, things like that. And, that does make me somewhat nanny state on that, because if I'm still making it illegal, even though you're the only person who's going to suffer, giving it to yourself. Other than that, I don't see marijuana on a... Nobody's ever died from an overdose of smoking pot.
All right, let me ask you, can we add hash to this? Hashish.
I don't know enough about it. Okay. Now...
To me, hash is just the same thing, only in a more concentrated form.
Right. And there is a problem with psychosis that can be induced. Massively high doses of THC. So, I do recognize that. That's why edibles are more dangerous, in my mind, than smoking marijuana.
Okay, but see, they don't say anything about a difference. It just says marijuana.
That's right, because from the NCAA standpoint, they're looking at drug test results. because that's ultimately what they base all this on. And so what I'm saying here is I'm not completely consistent with myself about saying, hey, I'm against nanny state. Taking care of me is my responsibility. Don't treat me like kids. And I'm that way about whether it's NCAA or the government.
So you think, when does being a kid end?
Right. When you are your parents' legal and moral responsibility, they have a say.
Okay, so at 18 it ends.
Currently, yeah. And generally,
so once they're 18, no more responsibility.
In our culture and our laws, yeah, that's pretty much it. There's also two other factors my kids know very much about. One is not in my house, because that doesn't end at 18. And then number two is, don't embarrass your family.
Yeah, but see, now you're adding all this other little personal
These
stuff.
are family things.
No, I know, but you can't do that. We're just talking about.
Okay, but in that, it just isn't.
Nobody cares about your family.
Well, you asked me a question, I answered.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, strictly speaking here, nobody cares about you. We're saying this is what's happening now.
Yeah. Well,
and
listen, there are things that I was allowed to do in school that I'd still get my rear end whipped when I get home. One was going to the bullpen. When I was in high school, they had a smoking bin outside for all the kids to go smoke.
Yeah.
This is how cultures change.
Yeah, they went the other way
over
on
time.
smoking.
Yes.
Right. Here you go. Earlier this year, the committee increased the THC threshold needed for a positive test. Recommended revamp penalties for athletes. The threshold for THC, the psychoactive ingredient marijuana, was raised from 35 to 150 milligrams.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, nanograms.
Yeah.
Per milliliter, matching that of the World Anti-Doping Agency. So they're just trying to keep up with the world. Anti-doping, heavy emphasis on the world anti-doping agency. So I guess in the whole scheme of things, the whole world is now allowing us to.
Listen,
to do
NCAA is all screwed up. There's no doubt about it. You can't be doping on testosterone for 8 years, in my mind, and still compete as a woman. I don't care if you've had all the parts chopped off, you still had the 8-year regimen of what I consider an illegal and immoral advantage over other women, right? And yet they're allowing you to keep it, and you don't even have to chop off your parts, and you still get to be, what's her name? Leah Thomas? Yeah. NCAA has no moral authority in my book. I agree with their adjustment on the THC.
Separately, the committee proposed setting a threshold of 0.1 nanograms per milliliter as a trace level for hormone GW1516 in hopes of preventing athletes from becoming ineligible because of ingesting the substance unintentionally from contaminated supplements.
Okay.
So I don't know what that's about.
I'm assuming that's a testosterone thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Because they've never had to put a ban on estrogen. You remember the movie The Longest Yard, the remake they did, where they gave them estrogen. And all of a sudden these wardens are bawling like babies.
I still think they need to give the Czech Republic girls and the Hungarians and the Ukrainians that won all those Olympic medals.
Yeah.
I think they need to give them their medals back.
Oh, listen, and every one of those universities that has a health science degree needs to lose all their accreditation if they believe this stuff. Because it's so anti-science.
But what I'm saying, though, with that is that when they took the medals away from those girls because they were apparently taking testosterone to make them enhance themselves as females. Now they got actual males competing.
Yeah, that they've been on full juice since they were 12.
Right. And so how can you say these guys are eligible for beating these women and take it away from them? I advocate for these Russian and former Soviet Union athletes.
Yeah, Eastern Bloc country.
East Germans, all of them, the skaters, the swimmers, the runners. Because you're so hypocritical that it just stinks, you know. Yep. Hey, I want to say one other thing. We were talking about my daughter, you know, and her friendship with Bobby Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
And that, well, she's got a new candidate.
I want to hear this.
Yeah. So I get this.
Because you were praising this guy.
Oh, I still am.
Yeah.
Wait, which one? The one before or the
Suarez?
Yeah. So I get this. We get this text and these photos, and now all of a sudden, here's my daughter at a dinner at the Reagan Library with Francisco Suarez, who just declared candidacy for president in this week.
Yeah.
And I want to say, will you make up your mind? No, she was just invited to this event at the Reagan Library, and Francisco has now. By the way, for those of you that don't know, Francisco Suarez is the mayor of Miami.
Yeah.
And the son of a former mayor of Miami.
Right.
And he's an up and coming Republican politico.
Yep.
He's a really sharp guy. I like him a lot.
Yeah, you do.
And my wife and I were discussing it this morning over breakfast, and I told her that doing a little pre-show prep. Mm-hmm. But no, I told her that I kind of almost wonder if some of these people aren't getting into the race to dilute the field.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In other words, you see, the Trump crowd, we're going to stick with Trump. Mm-hmm. He's got his 30% locked up.
I think you're right.
The other field is kind of, and in Florida, Francisco is very, very popular.
Oh, my goodness. I never thought of that.
Francisco.
You take DeSantis' popularity in Florida. Now take Miami out of it. Wow. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of you.
All right. Let them know.
The light's turning on up here. And Eddie's just watching.
The difference is that Francisco is actually full on Latino. He's Cuban.
Which isn't DeSantis
somewhere back there.
Yeah.
And I think he's Cuban. I think his wife's Cuban. I think he's Cuban. Mm-hmm. Now, he's an American citizen. He's born here and all of that. But he has some really strong Cuban roots. And in Miami, the community, they love him. And he's big time. Mm-hmm. He's a really strong. Miami has probably the lowest crime rate in America. It definitely has the lowest for the size of the city it is. Mm-hmm. He's done an incredible job with that city, and he's run it on very strong Republican principles. Mm-hmm. And so I wish he had waited until 28. But here's the second thought. Ahead of you.
Okay.
I'm jumping ahead of you again.
Oh, yeah. That's not hard for you.
Francisco may be running in the primary to take Florida and some of that away from DeSantis for another reason. Can you think of what that reason might be?
What, in Florida?
Well, in general, why he may be running.
I can think of a few, but I want to hear yours.
Okay. Is it possible that he may want to make a strong enough showing to make himself the viable candidate for vice president? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Knowing that 28 is when the real race is going to be.
Right.
So if he could be the vice president for Donald J. Trump wins, then there he is in 4 years. he's the man. It's kind of like Obama did in, what was it, 2004?
Yeah.
Where he showed up all of a sudden out of nowhere. He was the congressman in Chicago, became a senator. 2 years later, in 06, he starts running for president. In 08, in Bush's last 2 years, and then sure enough, in 08, he runs and wins the presidency.
I know. That wasn't supposed to happen.
No. So Francisco could be setting himself up not for 2024. He could be setting himself up for 2028, but letting everybody know who he is nationally and go out there. He's not going to attack. I guarantee you, he'll be smart. He'll be like Vivek Ramaswamy and what's his name, the black candidate,
Larry Elder?
No, from South Carolina, the senator. Larry,
Tim Scott.
Yeah, Tim. Oh, yeah. Let me tell you about Tim Scott. This is going to blow your mind.
Okay.
But anyway, that's my musings. My musings, and we'll see if I'm right. But no, I think Francisco's a smart guy. He's a real up and comer. He's very suave and debonair. Suave and debonair, for those of you that can't get that.
Yes.
Anyway, so we'll see. It's on.
Okay,
It's on.
here it is, folks. My number 2. If I, for some reason, could not, Donald Trump is not available for me to support for president. My number 2.
Wait a minute. He is not, or if he is?
If he is not.
Okay, if he's not. Okay.
Is Vivek Ramaswamy.
Good choice.
I tell you, when the indictments were handled on Tuesday, the only other candidate who showed up to protest in downtown Miami this injustice was Vivek Ramaswamy. Now, this isn't as much about Trump's future as much as it's about civil rights in America.
Yeah.
And Vivek gets it. It's not in Vivek's best political interest, purely selfishly, for Trump to just win this hands down in courts. But because he's motivated by the right things, he's the one that I have my trust in.
You know, it's interesting, too, that Vivek is the one candidate that Trump has never uttered one negative word against. He's not said anything against him. He hadn't attacked him in any way.
Now, there's a thought. Trump may be setting him up.
That could be.
As one of those people that, because Trump has learned to do that. You remember early on in 15, he was really backing Ted Cruz. He did some campaign events in D.C. with Cruz. They got along great until Cruz was too big of a threat. Because early on, it was assumed Jeb is the real threat.
Yeah, but see, again, I think Trump attacks when he's attacked.
That is true.
It's never usually the candidate. It's that team behind the candidate.
That's true.
That gives the...
But Trump does put a carrot on a stick, because as soon as Cruz won in Iowa, right away Trump became buddies with Ben Carson. Now but Trump.
But they set themselves up for that.
Yeah, I agree.
That's where you and I really got to know each other.
Right, but but despite all those things, Trump always has one candidate that he considers that really isn't a threat to him. He goes out of his way to have positive things to say. Now, as soon as it becomes a threat, he doesn't have anything positive to say about him anymore. So I'm just saying, I'm watching Trump and how he does things.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how
it could be that Trump is behind the scenes doing whatever he can to say, Vivek, I need you to stay in.
Yeah.
Well,
Vivek, Francisco, different ones for different reasons.
I don't know enough. Well, let's see what happens with Suarez.
Yeah, because it's kind of odd to me that Suarez even got into it because he can really sit back and sit pretty waiting for 2028.
Yeah.
But to me, it's just a little, I'm just suspicious that something's not at work here, that he's in it specifically to take out DeSantis. I really think that's the. I don't think there's a lot of love lost between them, he and DeSantis, and so and it's funny because it's weird. I really liked DeSantis, but the further I get into this, I'm starting to get a bad taste for the guy.
I just
not the policies, but see, to me that's the issue. Yeah. His policies are no different from Trump's policies. Yeah. So why would I go to him? Why would I dump Trump to go to DeSantis when it's the same policies in a different thing, in a different coat, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
And the people behind him are people that I really don't like, Karl Rove, et cetera. And these are all disloyal people.
Yeah,
really a lot of rhinos back there. So that tells me you're fake and you're phony. So anyway, that's just my thing. Hey, let me think. Is there anything else that I thought there was something else that I wanted to bring up? But I'm sure you have something statewide.
How about them Golden Eagles?
There we go.
Yeah,
there we go.
We got
Oral Roberts University Golden Eagles.
Now,
baseball team.
College baseball. Last year, the surprise team was the OU Sooner baseball team. They went all the way to the championship. Just fell a little bit short to Southern Miss, I think it was.
Mississippi State.
Mississippi State. I was confused those two. Anyway, but yeah, all of us. And by the way, OU trounced ORU way early spring. ORU actually, now, yesterday, the first round of the College World Series, they're up against the mighty power of the Big 12, Texas Christian, TCU. And they come out of nowhere in the ninth inning to win. And they've done that lately, amazingly so. So now they're in the winner's bracket. They advance. They're one of 4 teams to stay in the winner bracket after today.
I saw an extra bright flame coming out of the prayer tower there. And in that ninth inning, that prayer tower was just...
Yeah!
That flame was just...
There you go. So anyway, it's just really good to see the Summit League's torchbearer doing well, ORU, and ORU's always had a great baseball.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. That what is it about certain schools? They just. I was trying to think of what's the one from Washington State.
Gonzaga.
Yeah, in basketball.
Oh, yeah.
It's Gonzaga. Or you in baseball. You got just in certain sports.
Yeah.
And it's not these big conferences they come from, but in certain sports, they know how to.
You see this in religious schools because there are some coaches will stay with a university because they believe in the mission and the values, and it can be somewhat that, Not all of them. I mean, Bill Self started at ORU, right? And look where he ended up. Sonny Galloway was another one I got to meet. Different people. But yeah, ORU has always had a good program. And the funny thing is, they went 40-some years without getting back to the College World Series, even though most years they were ranked in the top 25. Just difficult. Well, part of it is if you're not in one of the major conferences, you usually get a bad seed and you never get to host a regional.
Right.
And ORU was hoping to get to host a sub-regional, but it didn't happen. They had to go beat Oregon in Eugene, Oregon.
Oregon, man, that's tough. Yeah, that's a big accomplishment.
Yeah, and my brother-in-law, who's a graduate of South Dakota State, which is the biggest rival ORU has in the Summit League, he and I smack talking about it. But Oregon's baseball coach is an alumnus of South Dakota State. So anyway, Summit League, I don't know what it's going to take for that league. Basketball, they've had, ORU's made the Sweet 16, right? And, North Dakota has been doing good in football and stuff like that. It's an interesting thing as you and I have been watching this conference realignment and the big dogs, and eventually you're going to see a whack happen where a big monstrosity is too big for itself and collapses like the whack did. Because they were powerful.
Yeah.
And I believe that the SEC and the Big Ten are the ones in the biggest danger.
Really?
Yeah, I really think so. Yeah, and because when you do an East-West, because that's what got whack in trouble.
Right.
The old rivalries at the heart of the old whack got split in two. And all of a sudden they said, wait a minute. We're not even an operating majority here. Us guys who've been carrying the water all these years and built this conference into something everybody wanted to join.
And what I'm looking forward to is the egos of Alabama and Texas coming into play.
Yeah.
Where Texas is going to be fighting with the Alabama egos.
Yeah.
And who's, and
yeah,
it's going to be interesting.
And if you don't understand the money part of college sports, you're never going to figure this out. Talking with a guy, I was going up for Christmas to see my family. I'm at McDonald's there outside the Twin Cities. Ran into a guy from Nebraska. He was up watching the Vikings game in the playoff there. And I talked to him, oh man, the old days of the Big 8, Nebraska and OU, Thanksgiving weekend, it was just huge. He said, yeah. I said, any chance Cornhuskers will come back to the Big 12? They said, not a chance. I said, well, you guys are sucking in the Big 10. And he said, yeah. But he said, it was Texas that drove us out. When they backstabbed the rest of us and did their own TV deal. Most people like me don't understand the importance of the money.
Yeah.
College sports has just gotten so money grubby.
Yeah. It's funny because the other one that's an issue is in the Big Ten. It's going to be USC and UCLA and Ohio State, Michigan. Those are going to be the ones now that's going to be the real, ego trips, between those who's the bigger, if SC and UCLA had played it smart, the real jump should have been to go to the Big 12, I think, because then they truly would have been the big dogs in the Big 12.
Yeah.
They would have replaced OU and Texas as the big dogs in the Big 12. And then, they could have probably done like OU every year and gone to the Big Four.
Right.
But now they've got to compete up there, and you got the egos with the Michigan and them. And so now, we'll see how that.
Now, the Big 12, it's got an East-West division.
Right.
So you don't play everybody in it. You play your division and a few from the others. The East has always been the powerhouse because that's where Ohio State and Michigan are on that side. And the West side was weak. Well, I'm sure they're going to put UCLA and USC in the West side.
Right, but that'll be an imbalance then, because you got to get somebody on the
Yeah,
East.
they're going to move things around. There's no doubt.
Oh, okay.
But what I'm going to say is, it's going to be the winner of Ohio State and Michigan versus the winner of UCLA.
Oh, so you think they'll move Michigan over to Ohio State? They'll put Michigan
They're
in the
both
East.
They are both in the East.
Oh, they are both over there.
Right.
Oh, so they'll just put the new ones.
You know
I see what you're saying.
Who's
Okay.
been winning the West has been Wisconsin
That's
or
true.
Iowa.
Iowa, yeah.
Or maybe Minnesota is fighting for it.
Right.
But what I'm saying, you put USC and UCLA in there, they're going to win that side. If you're from Wisconsin right now, you should be mad as can be about it.
Yeah.
Because there goes your chance ever making the championship game.
Yeah, they'll probably move Illinois over.
Yeah, in Northwestern, in Illinois.
Yeah, that's right. Sure.
Yeah, because those guys are right there. But
they only need to move one.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, but you got what is it? 18 teams now, or does this move it to 16? They were at 14. Still call themselves the Big 10. At least the Big 12 will now be 12.
Until they get.
Now they're 14 this year.
Yeah,
because they're keeping the two football teams that are bailing. So I'm glad Texas is leaving.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I would like to get A&M back. That's who I really would like.
I'll tell you who. Yeah, I'll tell you who I'd like to get back is Arkansas.
Arkansas.
I think Arkansas should be back.
I think Arkansas, Missouri, and Texas A&M. Those are three.
Well, I'll tell you who else. You can keep A&M.
Yeah, okay.
That's a Texas Tech Red Raider talking. They were always those were always our arch enemies. But
don't you like that? That rivalry's good for the sport.
Yeah, it is. But I'm just saying.
But you gotta hate them.
But no, you know who may come in and who I would like to see come in? Colorado.
Yes,
Colorado come in.
Now they got Deion Sanders.
Right, bring Colorado over. Let Nebraska stay if they want to stay.
I think you wanted Utah as well.
Yeah, if they can get Utah, that'd be a big get. Utah, Colorado, and then Arkansas should. Arkansas probably won't. They're probably too. See, the problem is they've got this SEC. See, Big Ten and SEC, they've got this elite mentality that we're just better than everybody else. Mm-hmm. Well, the conference may be, but you're not. Mm-hmm. So why don't you go somewhere where you can be somebody and then prove when you play against them, in other words, elevate the other conference and then go back and show them. I mean, that's what I would do. Yeah. A&M is a similar situation. Mm-hmm. You know, A&M there's always going to be an also-ran over there, okay?
Yeah.
They have no business being over there.
Yeah.
Arkansas and A&M especially, because of where they are. Missouri's another one. And there's no reason for them to be over there.
I think now that you got Brigham Young, it just makes sense to have Colorado and Utah there and Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
Arizona, great basketball school. Yeah. Not so much in football, but basketball and in baseball, softball. They're the only thing right now in softball that OU can be compared to because of how well they've done. So, anyway, I think with the Pac potentially collapsing, I think what the Pac is trying to do is pull some of the Mountain West teams in.
Yeah, San Diego State.
You got to that's a great grab if they can get San Diego State.
Yeah, Fresno.
Yeah, and so I think it makes more sense for some of the Mountain West teams to go into Pac because you got the prestige of the Pac.
Yeah, and the South Dakota teams, which are continually whipping up on those in that D2.
Yeah.
I mean, they could easily, to me, they would easily compete over there.
Yeah, North Dakota is one. Yeah, and they're just doing so well. I mean, they produce Winky, right? Who's top quarterback 1 year in the NFL.
Yeah, and Ben Roethlisberger came
not
from
Winky.
Didn't he?
Not Winky.
No, Winky.
Winky's my third cousin. He was from Florida
Where
State.
did Ben Roethlisberger come from?
Wentz.
Wentz.
Yeah.
Carson Wentz.
Wentz, yeah. Roethlisberger, I don't know where he came from.
I thought he came from one of those. Maybe
Could
wrong.
be.
Could be wrong. I'm often wrong.
Could be, but yeah, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, we better wrap it up, people.
But yeah, ORU is playing Sunday afternoon. They are playing the number 2 team, Florida. Who is really
Florida.
Good. Yeah. But ORU is just hot. They are absolutely hot. By the way, the OU girls softball team lost their number 1 pitcher. Ball. She is going back to Nebraska.
Yeah, why?
And she said it's a family decision. She wants to be closer to home. I mean, hey, listen, these kids, they've got real life issues, families with needs.
Well, when you've been to the mountaintop,
that's true.
She did what she needed to do. Now other things are just as important. Maybe she doesn't need that anymore. She's got her championship.
And you know what? When you're OU, you're not hurting for good players.
No.
You got plenty of choices. And so, anyway, That's good. Other than that, our legislature's still in special session and
trying to mess over the government.
Oh, they are messing. Listen, right now I'm depressed about Oklahoma politics, and I shouldn't be. Conservatism is doing great.
Hey, why don't you see if you can get Ryan Walters to come in?
I think it's time.
Yeah.
I think school year is over. I think he's loading for next year. I'll give him a call and talk to him about.
Oh, but you know what? I'm sorry. I won't be here.
Oh, we got a little shop talk. What's going on?
We're going to bury my mom.
Yes.
I'll be in Texas.
Yes. If you haven't heard, pull up the last couple of episodes. You talk about, Eddie's just going through, I admire the man. As the only child, it's time to bury mom, and your grace under this time of pressure is commendable. And so say a prayer for Eddie's family. Safe trip. And we'll just join up. Oh, happy Father's Day, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All you fathers out there, happy Father's Day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in here, too.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for everything. And we'll look forward to talking to you next time.
It's another day, and I'm thinking about the things I want to say, but my thoughts are like clouds drifting far away. Well, are you mad? I doubt sometimes that I'm on your mind. Just another face looking up from the crowd, searching for a way to talk to you now. Sometimes I feel small in the scope of it all, and then I'm reminded again that the very same God that dreamt of the ocean and set the stars into place, well, he knows me by name. The very same God that put the world into motion is listening today. Here's what I say when I pray. Oh, when I pray. I thank you for the faith that keeps me inspired, that tells me every day how much you desire just to hear from me. I can't tell you how much that means. It's so hard to conceive that the very same God that dreamt of the ocean, that set the stars into place, well, he knows me by name. The very same God that put the world into motion is listening today. Here's what I say when I pray, and I believe that you're with me, Lord, when I'm on my knees. Your timeless mercy rescues me. The very same God that dreamt of the ocean, that set the stars into place, well, he knows me by name. The very same God that put the world into motion is listening today. Here's what I say. The very same God that dreamt of the ocean, that set the stars into place, well, he knows me by name. The very same God that put the world into
buttons pushed today.
Yeah, I'll push your buttons, Eddie. I'll get you going. I'll work you up. Here we go.
All right. For you people on YouTube, Facebook, you all get the benefit.